Thank you everyone for being here, our second webinar of the year, and this is a special edition. It's our annual membership meeting. My name is Jesus Azanza. I'm the Chapter Executive Director for CAI Greater Houston. And so what I'm going to do here is hand it over to our chapter board president, Chris Archambault, who is with Daughtry and Farine. Daughtry and Farine is one of our gold premium partners. Chris has worked his way through the ranks to lead the chapter this year. And so we appreciate his leadership and his commitment to the community associations industry in the greater Houston area. With that being said, Chris, I'm going to let you take it over and welcome the group.
Thanks, Jesus. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Before we get started, I kind of wanted to go around and give everybody who's on the board of directors a chance to introduce themselves. So we'll start with Bill Higgins, who's the president-elect this year.
Thank you. I'm Bill Higgins with Crest Management, and as Chris mentioned, the president-elect for 2021. And looking forward to a great 2021 and getting vaccinated.
All right, let's go over to Amy Newsom.
I'm Amy with Live Oak Construction, and I don't think my video is actually working today. I'm the current past president from last year and currently co-chair of the gala.
All right, Stuart.
Yeah, I'm Stuart Masterson. I'm with Kilowatt Partners and Kilowatt Solar. We are energy providers and also provide solar systems. I am a multi-chapter member, been involved with CAI many years, and am proud to be a part of this organization. All
right, Nicole.
I am Nicole Luna. I'm with Real Manage, and I am the secretary. And this is my third year on the board.
I think Dana Ladd wasn't able to join us today, but she is the 2021 treasurer, and she's been on the board for a couple years now as well. And I think Michael Barrera, I don't think he was able to make it today either. He is on the board, and let's see, I don't know. Is Cynthia here? Yeah, Cynthia is here.
Hey everyone, so this is my second year on the board. I also am a multi-chapter member. I've served on multiple committees throughout Texas for the past 10 years, but Houston is my home. So when I'm not volunteering for CAI or my son's school, church, I do hold a full-time job with the bank. So I am with CIT, and our division is Community Association Banking. We've been a part of CAI for over 19 years, and I'm just thankful for being here and being able to contribute to the chapter and really making it the best chapter. So thank y'all.
Dee, you're up next.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Dee Eaton, and I'm with I'm a manager with AVR Management. I was recently elected a new board member, so thank you everyone who voted for me. And I'm also the membership committee chair, and I'm just really excited about everything we have planned for 2021. Thanks for coming.
And last but certainly not least, Lucy.
Hi, I'm Lucy Robertson. I'm the Community Association volunteer leader on the board, so representing all our hardworking HOA board members in our membership. This is my third year on the board, and I continue to learn a lot, and I'm looking forward to a very exciting year ahead of us, and also looking forward to getting the vaccine bill. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. For those of you who don't know the board members that well, we are lucky to have them on the board. It's an extremely focused and motivated group. The last few years that I've been on the board, we've been very fortunate as a chapter to have some very dedicated people on the board to help our chapter. So looking to start 2021 off fresh and hopefully rebound from last year. Obviously, CAI was not immune to the complications that COVID produced for everybody. That being said, through Jesus, our amazing executive director, we were able to kind of go forward and evolve and at least get something out of last year to really present some things to our chapter membership. Through those events, we had 30 content experts that presented 10 webinars, and our virtual legal seminar was presented as well, which resulted in a combined 15 hours of continuing education credit. Also, we created the manager chat, which is a virtual knowledge sharing and discussion platform for managers and board volunteers to get together, offer a support system, to share ideas and resolve, different challenges that you'll run into in the workplace. Also, with the new technology, as everyone kind of got accustomed to Zoom and meeting virtually, we were able to expand and reach over 500 new industry professionals as a chapter throughout the Houston area. So though 2020 kind of shut down for a lot, we were still able to garner some success out of last year, which is, solely the result of a lot of hard work from the board, but most importantly, Jesus, who was instrumental in our success last year. So we thank him for that. As we start this year, right, we're obviously trying to improve and kind of get back out there and see everybody. I know I'm excited to get back out there, and once we cover some of the future events that we have coming up this year, we really want to focus on being more efficient and bringing value to our memberships. So one way we're doing that this year is we're restructuring the chapter committees. For those of you who have been involved, you might have noticed over the last few years, our number of committees ballooned. And so we're going to cut back some of the committees, combine some other ones, and hopefully that will streamline us to be a little bit more effective in the product that we give to the members and how we serve the community. One of the other things that the chapter is focusing on this year is offering different membership benefits for your CAI membership. So we're looking to third-party businesses that will hopefully offer different products and discounts that we can offer to you. Whether it's in, healthcare insurance, office supplies, we're looking at doing that just so you can get an added benefit to your membership. So look for more information coming out about that. Obviously, as Zoom has kind of weaved its way into everyday lives, as we're obviously doing our annual meeting via Zoom today, we are going to be increasing the number of education opportunities we give through webinars. For example, we have the board leadership development workshop that's coming up that for the first time will be offered virtually and in person. So we're hoping to give those options, give you those options in hopes of increasing attendance and making it more efficient and effective for you all as well. Finally, one of the other focuses for 2021 is offering new networking events. We really kind of want to rebound from last year and give you all the opportunity to grow your business opportunities. Obviously, we need to adhere to the COVID healthcare safeguards, but we really want to get back out there, let you guys expand, network, and hopefully have a better 2021. Now, for those of you who are a little more focused on the legislative aspect, as you know, 2021 is a legislative year for Texas. So CAI and TCAA, which is the Texas Community Association Advocates, monitor the different proposed bills that are submitted and specifically how they could affect your community associations in Texas. So far, there hasn't really been anything filed that's giving anyone any heartache, but as things progress, they can change pretty quickly. Usually you see a rush of bills at the end of the session that we really want to make sure that we're up to date on. If we need you to get involved, contact your local representatives, make sure that you pay attention to the newsletter, follow the updates so that you can see what proposed bills are coming out. If you're curious, you can go to the Texas Community Association Advocates.org website and make a donation because without them, we don't really have an advocacy wing of CAI. So we really rely on them for that. But that's pretty much what we have going on this year. Obviously, I'm encouraging everyone to participate as much as possible. This being primarily of a networking and education chapter, you're going to get out what you put in. And so we're really hoping that you all are motivated this year to get out there and come see and participate in the events that we have lined up for you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jesus so he can go over a couple of the events we have coming up.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And excuse me, like Chris mentioned, a lot going on. We certainly have stayed busy, and we plan on continuing to stay busy as we move forward through 2021. I'll open up my screen here. I'm going to run through just a quick update on the state of the chapter, what we have going on. All right, first up, I think Bernie's excited. Hopefully everyone else is. We have axe throwing on February 17th. It's in Pearland, 5 to 7. We actually have the entire venue rented out. So We've got the go-ahead to stay a little bit longer if we need to. Really want to thank our event sponsors, Certed Pro Painters, Pearland, CIT Bank, Empire Works Reconstruction, and Superior Lawn Care. They've stepped up to help underwrite this event. We're always looking for more sponsors, so we certainly, if anybody has any interest in doing so, please reach out. It's free for managers, free for homeowners and board leaders, $50 for business partners. So please sign up. All of that information is available on our website. Next, oops, on the link. Uh-oh. Let me start from the beginning again. Okay, like Chris mentioned, we have our workshop on March 6th. Really exciting. First time we've ever done it in a hybrid format. One of our key pillars is education. So, we're bringing this to the masses. So please sign up. It's on our website, $65 for members, $40 for members if you want to do the virtual option. It's a great opportunity to learn how to serve more effectively and be a better community leader. So please check that out. For your manager, please share it with your boards. You'll get an email coming out tomorrow. It'll have all the information. It'll have a downloadable PDF. So please share that for us. After that, March 31st, we haven't done this in a long time, a golf tournament. So at the Wildcat Golf Club, 8:30 a.m. Really fun event. We're really excited about this one. Sponsorships available. They're going actually fairly quickly. This slide should be updated actually. So please reach out. If this isn't a pro event, all skill levels welcome. If you're a manager, you don't play, board member or business partner, we'll have a ticket options for you to attend the lunch or just to attend the day in person, drive around in a golf cart, meet some folks outdoors. We'll take in all safety measures that we need to. So please keep that on your calendars. This is a biggie. I know a lot of you on the call have been waiting for this information, and we actually just got the floor plan late last night. So the trade show obviously couldn't do it last year. We're bringing it back in 2021, coming back strong. We have 100 tables, booths set up. It's at the Bayou City Event Center. Should be a really fun event, outdoor event. A little bit different, mindset from an exhibitor perspective, but we're hopeful based on survey responses we've received and conversations we've had with our membership. Outdoor events are more likely to be attended, so we think this is a great alternative and a different approach to a trade show, and hopefully we can get the attendance. I think we will. We have 100 tabletops, so once we do open that up here in a couple of weeks, your business partner, reach out and secure your booth. So that was a quick highlight of what we have coming up. This is our full calendar for the year. I don't anticipate any shifts in dates. There might be, 1 or 2 days off in some cases. This includes everything from national PMPD courses for you managers out there right now. It includes, it's a pretty evenly split between in-person and virtual events. It's kind of the way of the world, so we're going with it. So please take a look at this. Most of this through March is on our website now. We're transitioning to a website, so you'll see the full calendar there in a couple of weeks. But take a look. You'll get this after the webinar, so you can look at the calendar, save the date, plug in some dates in your calendar. Find some things if you want to volunteer or volunteer or sponsor. You can certainly do that too. Marketing plan, like I said, we have tons of sponsorship and marketing opportunities. This is on our website homepage. Go there, click it, download it. There's so many ways you can get involved. So if you're a vendor out there or a management company, you want to spread your word, get some marketing out there, certainly do that. Premium partnership packages. If you've been on these calls before, you've heard me preach this over and over again. While every membership is important, every membership category, the premium partners in 2020 really carried the chapter from a financial perspective. So we are so grateful and thankful for them. The list of 2021 premium partners is on our website. Please go there and check it out. But these are our annual sustaining partnership packages. And so I encourage you to take a look, get involved, have a conversation with an existing premium partner, ask them, where the value is for them, and give us a call and learn how you can get involved that way. That being said, 2021, it's starting off to be a good year, but it started off a good year last year and we kind of hit a wall. We have these, amazing gold level premium partners. A lot of them are on the call right now. Again, it's the highest level we offer. So please, when you're looking at doing business, look to our business partner list, but in particular, look at our premium partner list, because those are the folks who are going above and beyond to support and sustain, community associations throughout the region. Continuing on, again, great companies, and if you ever need anything from them, you have a question, maybe aside from the law firms who might charge you. But they're great resources, and they're here to support the chapter and support you. So we certainly appreciate everyone. Again, this list and URL links are all on our website. It's on our homepage. Please check it out. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. That concludes the membership portion. Does anyone out there have any questions, any input? We want to take, just a minute to open it up to the membership. There's a lot of information real quick. I guess we did a good job. No questions.
Quick question. All the committees, are they, what's going on with all the different committees?
Yeah, so there's been some consolidation. That will go out probably next week. With the new structure, the new number and the new descriptions. Hasn't been too many changes with the descriptions, but again, there's some consolidation just to streamline everything. So the membership will get that email next week.
I have a question, Jesus. So does it look like we're going to be doing virtual seminars all year, or are we waiting to see what happens and potentially open up and do, luncheons like we have in past?
Yeah. So all of our education for 2021 is virtual. We've kept it open, at least we've talked about, second half of the year, maybe the last quarter, coming back in person. The only indoor in-person event we have planned is in October, our Take a Manager to Lunch. Everything else would be outdoor, or some sort of outdoor indoor element. So it's not on the agenda for this year to continue with the traditional luncheons, but it could be, in the last quarter. So really just depends on, how everything goes with COVID. All right. Chris, you have anything you'd like to say to close us out before we get into the webinar?
One, thank you all for attending. We actually had a lot of people today, 92 attendees. So thank you all for taking the time to join us. We really hope to see you all this year. As Jesus said, the events we have coming up are very exciting. I know I'm looking forward to both the axe throwing and the golf tournament. Hopefully no one gets hurt at the axe throwing once you see me throw an axe, but looking forward to it. I encourage you all to stay active, volunteer with us, reach out, join a committee, come to the events, bring a friend, and I hope to see you all in 2021. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Good work. All right. So let's get on to, thank you, everyone. Again, you can reach out to me. My email and phone number will be on, you'll be in the confirmation email afterwards. So we're going to continue with the webinar portion of this presentation. And so, technology's not working. Hang on one second. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is, we're picking up kind of where we left off. This is actually the last, the HOA Power All Things Electric was the last webinar or luncheon we held. It was March 5th, so just about a week before, everything, hit the fan last year. And so it was backed by popular demand. We had a great turnout in person. It looks like we have a great one here virtually. I want to thank our webinar sponsor, AppFolio. They are a gold premium partner. They've come on real strong. We certainly appreciate their support. And excuse me, I'm going to unshare my screen real quick just to make sure I have the right settings. So I'm going to play a quick video and we'll go from there.
Experience while also streamlining their Today's homeowners and board members want digital experiences. However, many community association management businesses don't have a cloud-based technology system in place. With the right tools, community association managers are able to provide their customers with a standout experience, while also streamlining their communications and maximizing efficiency. AppFolio Property Manager is an all-in-one solution on a cloud-based platform that enables you and your teams to work from anywhere, whether that's in the office, in the field, or at home. For accountants, you'll be happy to know that AppFolio is built on a robust accounting platform, keeping all of your financials, reporting, and recordings for your associations in one place. Additional functionality like bank integrations, smart bill entry, and automated AP take much of the busy work off of your plate, giving you time to focus on the future of your business. Completely mobile functionality provides access to the same data, reporting, and workflows from your computer, phone, or tablet, allowing you to keep a pulse on your business from anywhere at any time. And AppFolio doesn't just benefit managers. Homeowners can use the convenient mobile app to submit common area maintenance or architectural requests without the need to visit the office or even make a call. They can simply upload the specs of their project with a description, and it will be submitted to the board or architectural committee for review. AppFolio also streamlines communications. Send text and emails to individual homeowners or to entire associations, and keep historical records of all conversations. Additionally, a built-in automated mailing service allows you to send physical mail to your residents in a few clicks. Keep homeowners informed and engaged with AppFolio's online portal. Paying dues and assessments and making architectural and maintenance requests has never been easier through simple online tools accessible in their portal, boosting customer satisfaction while saving your team time. And board members, they get all that functionality in their online portal with the added ability to approve invoices, maintenance and architectural requests, and communicate in-app about association business, all within a system of record for easy historical tracking and management. With AppFolio, you get more than a software solution, you get a trusted partnership. We listen to what our customers are saying to ensure our products anticipate their needs and the industry's. Our teams work around the clock to innovate and bring enhanced features and functionality to the product, so it's always cutting edge and never outdated. Want to transform your community association? We're ready to help you get started.
All right, so we want to thank AppFolio for stepping up. They are what we call a chapter national member, along with folks like Alliance Association Bank, CIT Bank, and so we appreciate their support. You won't see them in person this year due to traveling restrictions, but they've come on and supported us in a digital way. So we really appreciate AppFolio. Again, please be sure to look to them for their product and service. All right, moving on. Presenters today, again, we have a great presentation, real knowledgeable group of people. Introduce, Jonathan Clark with Hoover Slovacek. He's the past president of our board, really active with the group. His company is also a bronze premium partner. Jason Cortez with JF Petroleum Group. I've known this guy for a long time. If you have an EV question, he's got to know the answer. So please welcome him. Christopher Hayden with Kilowatt Solar, and Stuart Masterson, Kilowatt Partners and Kilowatt Solars. I use that photo of Chris. I think it's just such a neat, neat little biopic there to see you in the field and working. So we appreciate everyone being here. This webinar is approved for 1 CE unit with CAMICB. So that information, the certificate will be mailed out afterwards. If you have any questions, use the chat feature and we'll coordinate that as we move along. We're going to try to reserve all the questions for the back end of the presentation. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to private message me or submit those and we'll coordinate that way. That being said, I'm going to stop sharing. And I believe first up, we have Stuart. Stuart, you there?
Yep, I'm here. I'm opening up the slide.
I see you now.
Okay, can y'all see it? Everybody there?
We're here.
Okay, so I'm Stuart Masterson. What? Okay, can you see the slideshow? Okay, so I'm Stuart Masterson. I'm with Kilowatt Partners. We were going to talk specifically about what's going on with LED streetlights. As you guys know, more and more of it's been going on. The idea is to try to help you guys, understand what's going on and manage the expectations of the boards, because the boards get all excited and think they're going to save 90% on their bills because they're putting in LED lights. So there is, excuse me, the bulk of your bill is actually the regulated charges on your street lights. And here's an example of one. This one is using 61,000 kilowatt hours of electricity at a contract energy rate of 4.5 cents. The energy charge is $2,700. The center point charges are 16,800. So even if you put in LED lights, you're going to reduce your energy charge, but you're not going to have a significant effect on your center point charge. You can see that if you do a conversion, you're able to knock down your energy piece from 2,700 to 1,600, and the center point charges will drop. They will drop about $4,000 on this bill. I'm going to go back so you can see the other one. The other one was 16.8. This one is 12.8. So there is now a definite improvement in the center point charges from conversions to the LEDs. If you have the metal halide lights, if you have the sodium vapor, then there's not. But so there is, as much as a 25%, 26% savings in this example in doing the conversions. So our position on this now has shifted a little bit from where it was, where we were kind of wait and see last year. As more and more of this has gone on, and the rates have filtered through the Public Utility Commission and ERCOT and on to the consumer. If you have opportunities to convert your street lights to LEDs, it's good to do it. You need to figure out whether you have metal halide or you have sodium vapor. But if you've got the metal halide, you can cut your bills by 25, 26%. I'm sorry, I missed a couple of slides in there, but and something new that's going on out there that we've become affiliated with are that you can actually put in solar street lights now, as well as them being LEDs. They've actually got solar panels on the support arm, and you can also put cameras on there as well, so that you can have 24-hour surveillance. Okay, so that's the gist. The gist of it is that it's okay to convert to solar at this stage. To LED at this stage. That the savings are there now, and I'm going to close this and let the next. Hang on. Okay, so Chris, are you ready to go?
Good morning, everyone. Let's see here. I want to tell you a little bit about us. I'm going to be discussing solar, like last year, the concerns that you're seeing in the field from a board member's point of view. What can and can't be done when homeowners are approaching you and offering their architectural reviews for your consideration. A little bit about us. We started out as Kilowatt Partners and have now expanded into the renewable energy side. We're now offering Kilowatt Solar, which is both PV, energy storage, and both installation and service thereof. So we also offer architectural reviews for boards that are looking for some advice on those architectural changes. We've got something, just don't understand the property code, you want a second set of eyes before you deny a claim or approve a claim, we're here for you to provide that service. We can typically turn that around within 24 hours of submission. And we're always happy to answer questions that you might have. So we'll go ahead and get into it. Last year, this slide presented both solar and wind, and Texas was the leader. That is still the case. I just can't seem to find the slide that shows all of that. But interestingly enough, we've moved up in the solar. We remain number one in wind. We're actually in wind, we're actually the fifth. We're the first in the nation, the fifth in the world as far as wind production goes. But this slide speaking to solar, we're actually second in the nation for installed solar as of the third quarter of 2020. That remained the case in the fourth quarter. Go Texas. So here's what we're here to talk about. Solar in Texas by the law. When you've got homeowners submitting for solar panel installation, right, there are three things that have to be considered in the state of Texas. Luckily, our legislators were kind enough to address this fairly early on, both from the House in 2011 as well as the Senate in 2015. That eventually culminated in Property Code 202.01, which leads board members, HOAs, to gives them a good sense as to what they can and cannot approve. And what is that exactly? Well, with residential solar, right? The property code lays out that it must not pose a threat, right? It can't violate the law, and it can't be in common areas. Obviously, this is for a home rather than a common area, right? So can't void material warranties. And oddly enough, it can't be ground mounted, but that's pretty normal because about the only folks that we see looking at ground mounted systems typically don't have HOAs. They're usually rural. The solar panels themselves, they can't extend beyond the roof line, and that just works out to building code and fire code, right? In other words, it has to conform to all existing codes. And then the same goes for the wiring and the bracketing. But for the wiring and the bracketing, the way the property code and the laws have been laid out, it does take into consideration board members' concerns as well as homeowners. They don't want they want the aesthetics to be right? So we're left with silver, bronze, and black. The good news is that 98% of the product out there is black to begin with now for residential installations. So what residents have to prove when they make the submission to you, right? And your board members take a look, what they have to consider, obviously, is their architectural guidelines set in place. But the homeowner themselves, once they submit it, it's up to the board to decide whether or not the submitted design meets the HOA's preset guidelines. And if it doesn't, they then turn around and return the application to the homeowner, who then, in conjunction with their installation company, has to prove a few things, right? They have to, number one, show how much energy their original submission created, right? And then they have to show what changes in order to meet the HOA's preferred design, right? If the homeowner, or rather the installation company, changes the design, alters it from its initial submission to the new or preferred design, they have to show whether and what the change in production is going to result in, right? And as the guidelines or the laws are laid out in the state of Texas, if the change from the original proposal to the, we'll call it preferred proposal of the HOA, if that preferred design results in a production generation difference of more than 10%, then the board has to allow the homeowner to go with the original submission. Of course, we'll discuss what options there are later on with the next presenter, but there are a few options left to the board. They don't just have to go with it. They can, I don't want to say fight back, but they can resist in certain ways. But I'll let my colleagues speak to that. but the loss of production letter. What's going to happen is once the homeowner submits their alternative design, the one that meets the HOA board's preferred direction, they're also going to submit what they call a loss of production letter. And this is also something that even in our position as an installation company, we will do these as well. It's going to show the difference, if there is one, between the original design and the redesign that the board would prefer, right? It's going to talk about what the production was beforehand and then what it is post-design. Same with the system size. And the state's guidelines actually require that this letter, the formatting, utilizes the Department of Energy's National Renewable Energy Labs PV watts calculation system. It's an industry-wide standard. So what we see here is what a loss of production letter looks like, right? And what we're doing is the homeowner would submit this along with a loss of production letter where they take, and that's an example of the PV watts calculator. You'll take the original design, run that through the PV watts calculator, and then you'll also take an alternative design, run that through the PV watts calculator. And again, these are the guidelines that the state of Texas requires. So, and then what you'll see is, whether or not there is a difference of 10% or more. Likelihood is if your homeowner is submitting this back to you, there is a difference, and this is essentially their argument, right? There's the alternate design. So I'm going to allow options for pushback on my colleague, but I thank you for your time and welcome your questions later on.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be back with you again. Well, less than a year since we last met, it feels like it's a lot of time has passed since we were together in March. For a few moments, we're going to revisit electric vehicles, EV chargers, and how it relates to HOA and property management. I'm a product and sales manager with JF Petroleum Group, and have been in the EV electric vehicle mobility space since 2017, and kind of live, breathe, and eat all things EV, it seems like these days. Here's just a quick overview of our presentation topics today. We're just going to run through these really quickly. Want to talk about industry growth. You don't have to look far to find chatter about EV. It's prevalent in the news, focal point of government at all levels, it seems like. The stock market is under its influence with nearly daily reports of SPAC and IPO announcements. So we'll briefly cover some of the growth catalysts. We'll touch on the opportunities in EV and how it relates to the local HOA and property managers, community leaders, and how they can seize these opportunities. We'll touch on property law influences and their impact on communities. We'll review product solutions and then identify funding incentives that can be leveraged to offset capital. So without further ado, we'll dive right in. So what's driving EV adoption? Government policies, of course, seem to be at the focal point. We see it in the news. We see reports of it in all kinds of aspects. Under the Biden administration, we can expect to return to Obama-era emission standards, which are going to impact traditional fuel vehicles and help drive EV adoption. Biden has already proposed 500,000 EV chargers as far as the forecast goes, and under the Biden administration, we'll likely see a renewal of tax credits and rebates to incentivize consumers to purchase EVs. Some of you may have heard of the California ZEV mandate, and the ZEV mandate basically is it just to simplify the mandate. It states by the year 2030, all new car sales within the state will be electric. And so California's kind of been the pioneer in that ZEV mandate, which ZEV stands for zero emissions vehicles. They've been the pioneer in that mandate, but it's been adopted already by 11 other states so far. So we see just, these four categories, and these aren't the only ones leading to mass adoption of EV, but on the auto manufacturer side, GM announced in January that all EVs, they'll be focused on all EV by 2030 and intend to be carbon neutral by 2040, I believe. But they're not the only ones. Even luxury auto lines such as Bentley and Maserati and Cadillac have said that by 2030, if you're buying one of their vehicles, it will be electric. When we look at forecasts, whether you look at Bloomberg or the Energy Information Administration, all of them have a forecast that anchor around 2025 of representing 4.5 sales, or even as aggressive as 11% of all new car sales being electric vehicles. So, that's government, auto manufacturer, but even consumer interest has elevated with EV. There's specialized financing programs, reduced registration costs, federal and state incentives to purchase EVs, and then, of course, the lower total cost of ownership. Electric vehicles are cheaper to maintain, less moving parts, less things to break, less preventative maintenance, actually almost no preventative maintenance when you look at an EV compared to a traditional fuel vehicle. Of course, this has the attention of public and private fleets. Uber and Lyft have said by 2030, if you take a ride in one of their vehicles, that service will be provided in an electric vehicle by 2030. But looking at fleets, both public and private, range increases and model option increases have got the fleets looking at that, as well as the lower total cost of ownership. Chris alluded to the DOE National Renewable Energy Laboratory. That's a laboratory of the DOE, and they just put out a report in October of last year, and this is a slide from that report. This graph over here on the left, the green bar represents the growth of EVs and EV battery tech. That's the green bar that's going up. Starts at 2010 through 2020. The blue bar is EV chargers. And so we see, well, not a hockey stick, but a continual increase in growth, both on the infrastructure side as well as on the vehicle side. Now, this column over here on the right of the screen is just somewhat of an overall market development forecast. 2010 through 2020, that's the market developing. 2020 through 2025, we'll see an acceleration within the market. And then by 2035, we'll be looking at market maturation to see significant growth both on EVs and EV charging infrastructure. This growth is driven by a trajectory of three technology sets: the vehicle and the battery technology, the charging technology, and the infrastructure and development build out. These are the things that are accelerating the growth. Just starting with the top, top left-hand corner, you see a picture of the Rivian SUV. EVs are no longer just going to be awkward vehicles, but there are performance models, full utility trucks. Everyone's got an EV truck coming out. But the batteries are getting cheaper, and they're getting faster to be at their charging rate, and even their range of travel on the battery is increasing. So range of travel, charging rate, all of that is being developed and enhanced, and so that is driving adoption. Also, charging options, output capabilities on the charging infrastructure, the quantity of locations, the types of locations that are offering EV chargers. This picture in the center is essentially the gas station of tomorrow. This is a picture of a location in the UK where you see the EV chargers in the forecourt, and then the shopping area center in the back. So this is literally the gas station model of the future, and this is an active location in the UK today. So, the vehicles, the batteries, the charging, access to charging, and then infrastructure and development build out. Electrical, utilities are getting involved. They're supporting the build out. They're incentivizing business owners to put in EV chargers. And then there's funding infrastructures like the Volkswagen environmental mitigation trust that is allocating a fund of significant funding to each state to subsidize the cost of electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So these funding and subsidies are available, and all of this is driving the increase of technology. When we just kind of drill down and look at the electric vehicles as it pertains to population, Texas is number 4, in the nation, and we have actually been number 3 in the nation. I think it was interesting that Chris mentioned that Texas is number 2 for solar. Well, we're number 4 in EV, and I predict that we'll take place number 2 probably within the next 2 years. I think year and a half to 2 years. But right now there's 51,000 EVs on the road and not near enough chargers. So the market is somewhat underserved when you count the amount of EVs that are on the roads in Texas versus the amount of chargers. There's 286 level 3, or what is also known as DC fast chargers, available. That number does not represent Tesla chargers. That's just open access public chargers that are level 3 capable. And then of course, level 2 chargers, just under 3,000. So when you look at the chargers versus how many EVs are on the road, and the speed in which Texans are purchasing EVs, we're underserved in charging infrastructure. So that's kind of just an overview of the industry growth. Now I want to talk about the opportunities in EV as it relates to your industry. We've set the table by looking at the growth. Well, let's look at the implications that this growth has on your industry. EV drivers charge about 70% of their charging is done at their home, and about 30% is done in the marketplace. And so this 70-30 split for EV drivers charging at home and everywhere else, it leads us to recognize we've got to prepare within your industry the opportunity for EV drivers to have somewhere to charge. This slide right here, it kind of lays out the differences in traditional fueling and charging. We are conditioned by processes of traditional fueling, and that's a generational conditioning. So it's easy to try to look at EV charging and make it fit in our minds potentially as the same as traditional fueling, and it's to be expected to think of EV charging in the same terms of traditional fueling, but they're really not. They're not the same experience, and they don't even have to be. And I'll just say this, 90 to 95% of a car's lifespan is spent parked somewhere. So it just makes sense that in that downtime, parked charging would make perfect sense. You may have heard me use the analogy the last time we were together, and if you don't remember it, that's fine, but I like to use a cell phone analogy in comparison to EV charging. We plug our phones in overnight. By the morning, we should have 100% battery to start our day, and as we use our phone, the battery is depleting, and then we charge them as needed. We don't let them get to empty. We don't wait till they're empty to charge them, but we plug them in as we need to. And, we get a charge as we go throughout the day. It's the same thing with EV drivers. They're for the most part going to begin their day charged, and then they're going to charge where they're at, where they park, where they work, where they shop. They're looking to be continually topping off their vehicle, and maybe topping off is not a good way to say it, but getting a level of charge on their vehicle while the vehicle is parked. So that is clearly a difference from the traditional depot fueling model that we see in normal fueling or in regular fueling, where someone goes somewhere to get fuel, they fuel to capacity, and then they don't worry about a gas station until they see that they need fuel again. So it's a different model with EV drivers. So moving on, with this in mind, EV has incentivized developers to prepare this offering to EV owners. There's some value propositions that we see laid out here. The developers are aware of to add EV as they're looking at developing properties and site design, increase property value, emerging building codes, which we'll talk about here in a few moments. But, you know, differentiating properties by having a premium amenity offered at them. Future proofing for the demand that will be needed because of the growth of EV. And then, of course, doing something ahead of time versus trying to go back, you know, and go through a remodel to add EV. You know, it's a construction cost that's higher in the remodel versus doing it on the front end in the site design phase. So EV is incentivized developers. EV is incentivized multi-unit dwelling communities. They see this opportunity as well to attract and retain high-value residents. And, you know, again, it's an increased property value and a competitive differentiating from other properties. You know, we put EV chargers in at multifamily communities, and really they should be the easiest project to close on, because the ROI is literally one resident calling that property and finding out that, you know, they offer EV charging and they are an EV driver. Naturally, they're going to select that community as the one that they want to become a member of versus the property that does not have EV charging available to them. But yeah, quick ROI in the MUD communities. And then, of course, there's the opportunity to generate an additional revenue stream. What we've seen in the chargers that we install in multifamily communities is usually a charger with a split use, perhaps a free service offered to the residents. And if the charger is publicly accessible, a fee for those that do not live there to use the charger. And, you know, you have the right product, the right model, you can create driver groups that will help manage who's using it and who's paying for it and who's not paying for it. EV has incentivized HOAs to prepare as well. So, you know, community leaders and boards, property owners, they see this opportunity as having a similar value prop to that of the multifamily communities. But, you know, again, increased property value, competitive differentiation from other properties, you know, attractive amenity for buyers that are looking. And so the HOA, of course, has the option to either retain the ownership of the charger, or build it into its cost of the condo purchase. There's all kinds of opportunities in that, but we need to make sure that we're seizing those. These are some industry brands that you probably recognize that have acted on this opportunity and have deployed EV charging solutions on their properties. So that's kind of an overview of that section. Moving into the property law influences. Property laws are definitely being influenced by EV. The right to charge law. If you're not aware of the right to charge law, you should take some time to familiarize yourself with it. And this law varies by state and translates differently when applied at the municipal level. But because of EV growth, Texas will be the next state to probably have these various laws implemented. And as was mentioned earlier in the session, you know, this is a legislative year for Texas, and you know, I've actually been meeting with one agency that is going to be looking at regulation of the public facing EV chargers and how it applies to consumers purchasing for, you know, an electron to fuel their vehicle, to charge their vehicle, and you know, what are the implications of that? But looking at the right to charge laws, you know, basically to simplify them, you know, some of the conditions of right to charge laws: properties must allow residents to install EV chargers, or in some regions, the law extends to making sure that the properties even pay for the EV chargers. And in some regions, it's kind of boils down to electricity is measured and paid for by the EV driver. And in some regions, that's paid for by the property. But, you know, each right to charge law and as it applies to the region which it sits, you know, kind of translates differently. So we just got to look at it, you know, from whatever perspective is deployed in those regions. But we should have a handle on this law, because there's no reason to assume it will not come to Texas with the growth of EV in Texas. So that's right to charge laws, looking at EV building codes that are set at the municipal level. Our company has been guiding customers that are working in this EV site design phase to consider allocating 10% of their parking to EV chargers. And the reason why is this kind of aligns with other examples of building code regulations in different places and in different regions. This slide just kind of shows some areas and the percentage of EV parking spaces that have to be ready. So if we look at, New York, 20% of a public property with the public parking, 20% of those parking spaces need to be EV ready. And so, building codes vary, but the basic definition is, as it pertains to building codes and EV charging preparation, the spaces either need to be what's known as EV charging capable, which means the infrastructure prep has been put in place. There's a panel supply and an empty conduit made available for that, to make those parking spaces EV charging capable. There are some codes that say, well, we want more. We want it to be EV charging ready. And what that means is all make ready construction is complete. All that is left is for the property to buy and connect an EV charger. And then there are some regions that say, you know what, you need to have an EV charger installed. So when the property opens up, when it becomes active, there's chargers active and installed, ready to go. Here are some EV building codes that were adopted in 2020. Again, just, laid out here in this graph by city and state and by what the ordinance was in 2020. Salt Lake City, Utah, 20% EV capable. So what that means is infrastructure is been prepared. There's a panel room and empty conduits ready to go at 20% capacity of a parking area. So, that's just some impact as it pertains to property laws. Now, just want to touch real briefly on EV charging solutions. Again, this section, I just want to underscore this. This section is intended to be informative and not salesy. I'm just here to present information. So one of the things that we help a community look at when surveying for EV chargers is we seek to identify three things. We want to identify if the chargers would be preferred to be assigned or community parking, assigned to a person, or basically open access community charging. We drill down to find out, does the property want the public to be able to access the chargers, or is this strictly internal to that community? And then we want to identify if there's going to be fees to use the chargers, or they'll be free to use the chargers. So fees or free, and public or private access, and is this personally assigned or community charging? And the answers to these questions point us to the right product. Over here on the left, you see the CPF 50 manufactured by ChargePoint. This is best for assigned parking spots with one station assigned to one driver. It's a dedicated charger used exclusively for the driver. And in some settings, we can configure it where the driver pays for this as a monthly service. With community chargers, this product example is a CT4000 manufactured by ChargePoint, and it's best for shared parking and guest parking and kind of open and mixed open resident access and public access. Multiple drivers can use this, and there's a take turn aspect to it, taking turns charging. And maybe the property would pay for annual network plans for use of this charger, setting fees or letting it be an amenity, however designated. Most important thing that I can point you to, again, not being salesy but informative, you're going to want a network station at your community, and there's several reasons for that. Here's some value propositions as to why, but it's easy to measure and bill residents for usage on an intelligent charging station that is communicating with its own dashboard, available for metrics and analytics, how much charging is being done, who's charging, when are they charging, how much energy is being dispensed, what are the costs, all of those things. You're going to need those parameters that are only available through an intelligent network station. They're cheap, and when I say dumb, I just mean unintuitive EV chargers that are out there on the market that have no communication interface. They can't communicate with the driver. They can't give back information to the site host and owner. So you want a product that's going to make things easier for you. The CT4000, it has waitlist functionality. A driver's parked on this charger. Their charging session is coming to a completion. They're being notified through their cell phone. Your vehicle is ready. It's charged. It's complete. You know, if they move it, good. Let the next person in to charge. If they don't move it, then fees can be set to escalate. That can be set in an escalation format to get the driver to move their car out of the way so they're not blocking the charger. But anyways, you get all that on a smart, intuitive network charging station. So you can read through these value props. You obviously want a product that has a mobile app that can communicate with drivers, tap to pay functionality, you know, basically an unmanned charger that makes everything easy for you. Here's an example of the ChargePoint web portal that property managers, community leaders, you know, station owners, whoever has access to. You can give residents access to the stations, set pricing policies, create driver groups. It's free for some. There's a fee for others. However you want to do it. You can track your energy usage, get notifications for maintenance issues. These units are networked and communicating with the ChargePoint network. So even ChargePoint can find out if there's you know, some kind of an issue with the charger that they can remote in and fix. Project budgeting, we are able to come to your location, provide you a free site assessment and a free just kind of survey to let you know what your costs are. But if you kind of want an understanding of what a EV project would cost, the CT4000 with dual output that can charge 2 vehicles at the same time, it's about $7,200. Cloud plans start at $280 a year. Installation ranges, but we can just say you set a baseline for $5,000. Obviously, we want to identify an installation path that makes the most sense, that reduces installation costs and gets the shortest run from power source to where the charger is planted. You can brand these stations if you so choose, putting your logo, your color scheme on the charger. And you know, we've got even, you know, other levels of EV charging product that start as low as $1,500 a charger. So, you know, again, the right product will help you get there to know what's right for your property and help you make the best decision. So about to close out here, just want to touch real briefly on incentives and rebates that will help offset capital costs with adding EV chargers. First one I want to draw your attention to is Volkswagen funding that is available in Texas right now. It's good through September of 2021. There's up to $2,500 available per charger, per level 2 charger that is installed. $2,500. These grants are being awarded on a first come, first served basis. It's reimbursement basis only. So you front all capital and then you are reimbursed based once the project is complete. This program ends September of this year. So if you have some interest in this, please reach out to me or reach out to Jesus and we'll get you fixed up. Entergy, for those that have properties in their service territory, they have a cash incentive of $250 that can be applied towards level 2 chargers. You just have to have an Entergy account. You provide them a copy of your equipment invoice. You submit your application documentation, and within 90 days, you'll get a check for $250. This $250 cash incentive can be combined with this. It can be combined. So there's the funding through Volkswagen, the funding through Entergy. Houston Galveston Area Council has some funding available for sites in Harris County and surrounding counties. This rebate can cover up to 35 to 65% of your equipment costs. Awards are evaluated on a case-by-case basis. If you have interest in this program, there's an application process. The worst you can do is be told no. It doesn't hurt to ask them for funding, and they do allow collaborative funding. So again, if you were to apply for this and be approved, you could also leverage the $250 cash incentive to Entergy if you're in their service territory, and you can also apply for the Volkswagen funding of $2,500 per EV chargers. And lastly, there is a tax credit available now. It covers up to 30%. Looks like I've got a there's some kind of error on the screen, but you can get a tax credit of 30% of the cost of the EV project as a tax credit. So that concludes my presentation. Now I'll turn it back over to Jesus.
Thanks, Jason. A lot of good information. I guess while I'm pulling up Jonathan Clark, who's up next. Quick question, Houston is obviously prone to flooding. Can you speak on the charging network as it relates to maybe emergency response for our region and trying to get out or come back in?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that question was for me. Could you repeat that?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
I'm sorry.
Houston's prone to flooding. Any update on the state's kind of emergency readiness plan on creating a network of charging units for vehicles?
That's one of the, so that's one of the driving factors behind the Volkswagen funding is that areas that are being identified to fund quicker than others. There's a scoring criteria for funding that can be leveraged to pay for EV chargers. Of course, they identify where the charger's at, where what local amenities are there, and then of course an exit plan for for getting out of flooded areas. Yes.
Okay, appreciate that. Again, we'll reserve questions. I know we got a couple through the chat for the end. And so next up is Jonathan. Let me pull it up. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, I got that right. Excuse me, Jonathan. Let me get set up here in just 1 second. There we go.
Okay, great. Jesus, thank you for facilitating and coordinating everybody. It's good to be here this morning. I'm Jonathan Clark. Great presentation so far. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of jump back to section 202.010 of the Texas Property Code. Chris did a great job of giving an overview of that, and a little bit of this is going to be redundant, just so I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly and get to some of the deeper issues that are involved in 202. Ask these questions a lot from clients about architectural approval, what standards can be applied and enforced. And so we'll kind of get into some of those issues here and just dive a little bit deeper into the statute. So as Chris mentioned, House Bill 362 was passed and became effective June 17th, 2011. Really clearly, the legislature made it apparent that the legislative intent of many laws that were passed that year was to promote energy conservation measures, and one of those is solar energy devices, primarily solar panels, and that's kind of what we're diving into here. So associations may enforce restrictions that prohibit or regulate solar energy devices only in certain limited circumstances. Go on to the next slide, Jesus. The statute is this yin and yang and tug back and forth between owners' rights and the rights that an association has to regulate solar energy devices. If you read it, your head starts to spin because it gives and it takes back, and it gives and it takes back, and it gives and takes back. So big picture, to make this easy, associations may regulate solar energy devices only if any of the following conditions exist. And that is if the device is illegal or violates public health or safety as determined by a court, if it's located on the common area or commonly owned property owned by members, located in an area other than the roof or fenced yard or patio, the owner's roof of a dwelling or other authorized structure, or the yard or patio. So anywhere else, it can be regulated or prohibited. Installed in a manner that they violate the warranties, if they contain elements, the frame, support bracket, piping, wiring that is not silver, bronze, or black tone, and if they're installed without the prior approval of the association. So that last little prong there is interesting. The owners do still have to apply and receive approval to install solar energy devices. What your associations need to do, managers, if they have not already, is your associations need to generate and adopt a solar energy devices policy. And that policy needs to be recorded with the real property records for it to be enforceable. And in that policy, what the association can do is it can address all these issues and can sort of proactively ensure that everything that's on this slide is complied with. And then further, with regard to the last prong, installed, giving some more guidance as to the location of where the solar energy devices may be placed on the roof or the backyard. The association can go into a little more detail. What I see primarily is most associations say that the solar energy devices must be situated on the rear portion of the dwelling so that they're not visible from the front street. And I think that many of the managers on the call are familiar with that approach. And just generally speaking, that makes sense. If the panels are situated where that you're not even going to see them from the street, then no one can really complain about the aesthetic appearance or that it's affecting detrimentally the neighborhood or anything like that. So that's what we see most often. All right, we'll go into the next slide, Jesus. So as to the two locations that owners are allowed by this law to install the solar panels, is the roof installation and then the fenced yard installation as well. As to the roof, it may not extend higher than the roof line. It must conform to the slope of the roof. It must be parallel to the roof line. So obviously it wants, the intent here is that it be as aesthetically consistent with the roof as possible. And as I just mentioned, the association can designate the location. And I have in parentheses there, but ... and we'll cover that in the next screen. Chris talked about it just a minute ago as well. As to the fenced yard installation, it can be the backyard or patio only, and any installation of solar energy devices may not extend above the fence. So basically put it in the backyard or in the patio, but as long as it can't be seen over the fence. So as to coming back to the roof installation, association may designate the location, and that's where we get to the 10% greater energy efficiency rule. Chris talked about this, and I'm just going to read it. It's on your screen, and it's a word, it's a mouthful, okay? So if the alternate location, and in terms I'll use here is the association is going to put out the desired or the designated location, which oftentimes is going to be the rear of the roof of the dwelling. Now, if the owner comes up with an alternate location that they want to use, i.e. the front portion of the house, side portions of the house, or areas that are visible from the street, which would be contrary to the association's designated policy, then here's what the statute says. If the alternate location increases the estimated annual energy production of the device as determined by using a publicly available modeling tool provided by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory by more than 10% above the energy production of the device if located in the designated area, the owner can use the alternate location. So it's just kind of speaking plainly here. The association says all panels must be in the back of the house. The owner comes up with a location that shows, hey, if we put it in the back of the house only, then we're only going to get this much energy production. But if we put panels in the front and on the side, we're going to increase that energy production by more than 10%. All right. Well, pursuant to this portion of the statute, it says that the association has to allow the alternate location. And that would be crystal clear if it stopped there, but it doesn't. So I have in parentheses again, unless, and now we get to what is called the substantial interference test. And even if the owner can show a 10% greater energy efficiency, the association can object to the alternate location if it determines that the location constitutes a condition that, and here are words from the statute, that substantially interferes with the use and enjoyment of land by causing unreasonable discomfort or annoyance to persons of ordinary sensibilities. All right, now that is definitely a mouthful there. And I call it the substantial interference test. I think just by looking at the plain language, it's a very high and subjective standard. What does that mean? That if we put solar panels on the front of the house or on the side, that's going to substantially interfere with other owners' use and enjoyment of their land by causing unreasonable discomfort or annoyance to persons of ordinary sensibilities. Well, that's what the legislature said. And at this time, there are no court cases. All right. So no court yet has gone in and analyzed or given us further guidance on what might or might not constitute substantial interference. Some ideas that have come up, or some thoughts, I guess, are what if the solar panels are situated such that there's a glare that when the sun reflects on the panels, it's going to reflect into a neighboring property's home. There are also some unique situations that I've heard of. Maybe you have a very historic neighborhood with very detailed architectural requirements for the roof, the aesthetic appearance of the dwellings, and installing solar panels would be very much out of conformity with the neighborhood. Or I've seen situations where the dwelling is on a golf course. And so instead of just the dwelling being visible from the front street, it's very visible from behind, from the golf course. Or maybe it's a lakefront dwelling where from the lakes and all the neighboring properties that are situated on the lakes, the solar panels will be very visible as well. So those are some unique situations that I guess we'll just have to see how the court is going to interpret this substantial interference, and whether or not that an association or an architectural control committee that is denying an alternate location has a leg to stand on, and how high that standard is going to ultimately be viewed by the courts. Now, as I said, this statute goes, it gives a standard and a rebuttal to the rebuttal, and then a rebuttal to the rebuttal. So even if the association says or determines that the alternate location substantially interferes with the use and enjoyment, the owner can rebut that presumption by getting written permission from his neighbors, his or her neighbors. And technically, the statute says adjoining neighbors. So we would assume that would mean neighbors that are directly next door to the subject home. So the owner can go to his neighbors and say, hey, I want to put on solar energy devices on my roof. Here's the design of what I'd like to put up. And if the neighbors all say, hey, it's fine with me, well, then now there's a presumption. We'd call it in law, it's a prima facie presumption that the alternate location does not substantially interfere with the use and enjoyment of land by the neighbors. Let's see, Jesus, do I have one more slide? Okay, I don't. Okay, so where we are at this time in space with regard to the law on this, is, I hate to tell you, it is still uncertain. And that's because we haven't had any cases that have come down and have ruled on this. What I think makes sense, and I'm very happy that we have all these other experts on the call, because I anticipate there's going to be some questions about these issues, and I want to hear their perspective on it. Quite honestly, you guys probably are much more familiar with this area than I am, and there might be standards or other regulations that I'm not even aware of that regulate these things. But having said that, what I recommend, I think, is that the associations try and strive to work with owners to reach some happy medium of, what can work that can provide the owners with the necessary energy efficiency that they're seeking from the solar energy devices, while not compromising the aesthetic appearance of the neighborhood that the association, the architectural control committee, is trying to maintain. And then I want to mention one more thing that I think may come up, just as Jason talked about, and as we have all seen with regard to the electric vehicles and the batteries and all that stuff. Technology is improving rapidly. And I want to hear, in fact, from some of the other presenters, probably Chris in particular, the technology with regard to solar panels, I understand, is improving quite a bit as well. And one of those improvements is sort of the aesthetic appearance of these panels. So I'm curious to hear what is to be said there, because I think the major objection of HOAs is the old guard, the old standard. Go back about 3 slides, Jesus. The old panels that are very reflective and visible. And there's one. And yeah, both of those. And I think even the slide before that has another example. And, you know, I think, and I understand that these are becoming more aesthetically pleasing with the advance of technology. So that is what I have to say. That's my contribution. If we get peppered with questions, I'm happy to hear what the rest of you guys have to say.
Thanks, Jonathan. A lot of good information, and everyone really. We got a couple of questions. Let me back up and get this one answered. It says this will be for Chris and I guess Stuart. We have some common areas with electric lamps that are managed by the HOA. These common areas have mature trees, so little light. Is solar an option for our HOA common areas?
So the answer would be, it depends on how much shading there is and how much lighting you're needing. If you're needing, bright light, all night long, then there may not be enough sun. If what you're talking about is a lesser amount of light and maybe not for all night, but maybe for a certain number of hours, then it is a solution that you can put in. And not only are there street lights, but there are also bollards, there are street signs you can do that are illuminated names. So there are solutions out there. You just have to look at the circumstance to determine whether there's enough light to provide, enough sun to provide the amount of charging that you need for your energy need.
Awesome. Amy, I'm going to ask your question since it kind of falls in line with blocking. It says, if the association has a rule protecting the removal of trees and the owner wants to cut down the trees to allow for the optimal panel location, can the association prevent the tree removal and demand another panel location? Jonathan, it's probably more for you.
All right, thanks, Jesus. I'm reading the question again. Rule protecting the removal of trees, wants to cut down trees to allow for the optimal panel location. Prevent the tree removal. That's interesting. Good question, Amy, as always. I mean, I almost see it as separate issues. I guess I don't understand why that they would have to cut down the trees. Is this a backyard mounted? It's on the roof? I see her saying, yeah, shaking yes and no. I mean, then I'm going to defer to some degree to Chris and Stuart and say to you guys, why would you have to remove trees in order to install the solar panels? Is there any way to work around that?
So definitely trees, the shading from trees is a big factor in where you locate the solar panels. So, but I think the question really isn't about the solar aspect of it. It's really whether the homeowner has the right to remove a tree. If he has the right to remove a tree, he has the right to remove it. If he doesn't, then that's where it gets a little more tricky about whether he can demand that the tree be removed in order to put solar. And that's really back in, I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, normally what we're doing is we're evaluating the alternate versus the original system and trying to figure out whether they're making the calculations correct and whether you can choose one side versus the other. But I don't, the removal of the tree seems like a separate question from whether it's related to the solar.
Stuart, I agree. I think your analysis is right. I think what it's doing is kind of putting the association in a position of having to choose the lesser of two evils. Either you're going to have to allow the alternate location that might be more prominent, or perhaps allow the owner to trim some trees or remove some trees so that the desired location can supply sufficient energy from the panels. But yeah, interesting question.
I would add to that in when you're talking about what you adopt for the homeowners association in terms of its solar limitations, that sometimes by making it too broad, you make it easier for the homeowner to get around that rule. By making it more narrow, you may have more ability. So if you say, we don't want solar on the side of the roof facing the street, that may give you more ability to keep it off of the face of the street. If you try to say viewable from the street, now you're talking about 3 roofs that are normally going sides of the roof that are going to be viewable, and it's going to be easier for him to beat that with the size of the system he puts on. So I just put that out there, that sometimes making it a little more narrower aesthetically will be to the advantage of the homeowners association and enforcing an ordinance or a rule.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. All right, what else, Jesus? What other
Yeah,
questions?
next question. This will be for Jason, and you may have covered this. I don't recall. What is the average time to top off electric vehicles? I know there's several different types of units.
Yeah, so I touched on that in the slide that showed fueling versus charging. And basically those experiences don't mirror each other. I know we're conditioned to think of speed, fast, charge from 0 to 100% right away. But again, the 70% of EV drivers start their charging or conduct their charging at home, and 30% of that balance is in the marketplace. So while charging times do not mirror gasoline fueling times, there are chargers, public accessible chargers that are deployed today, right now, with 350 kW output. And when you take a vehicle with maybe 1,000-watt battery pack and it charges on that 350 kW charger, you're looking at a 5-minute charging experience. But right now, the technology has to develop. And whenever I say that, I don't mean that as in some ethereal time in the future that we don't know right now. I mean, there's technology that is developing. Penn State just this January announced that they had developed in-house a battery that had 250 miles of range, could be fully charged in 10 minutes, and would have a 2 million mile lifespan. So the technology is advancing rapidly. And so while we can get caught up in charging times, how fast, there are DC fast chargers that are deployed that at 50 kW output, they're all over the place. If you're not looking for them, you don't see them, but they're out there that can charge a vehicle from 0 to full, in 35 to 40 minutes. But again, the EV driver, we think in terms of a tank that's full versus a tank that's getting low and needs to get fuel deposited. With the EV driver, they stay above 20% depletion and below 85% capacity. And the basis for that is creating longevity on the battery pack. So if we're constantly draining a battery and refilling the battery, we're causing degradation on the battery. And so again, we've got to shift our mindset when it comes to EV charging and how it applies in a public access. That's a long way of answering that question, but the short answer is, yeah, there are chargers out there that can do it. There are vehicles, though limited right now, that are market ready that can charge at that capacity.
Because obviously, I have a background in convenience stores, the convenience store industry. Traditional fueling pumps are tampered with. Are you seeing that in any, common areas with community associations, multifamily, single family? Are they, being dropped and broken? What's the turnaround time to fix something like that? And, this will speak to both the condo folks on the call and the single family.
So with the EV chargers, there's not a lot of moving pieces. If you were to take an EV charger and stick it up next to a traditional fuel pump, if you were to open both up, you would see, on the traditional fuel pump, hundreds of components. Whereas with the EV charger, you're going to see just a very few. There's not a lot of moving pieces, not motors and parts and circuit boards. There's a modem in there, but for the most part, it's just a hollowed out unit that is redistributing energy from the grid to the vehicle, or transferring energy from the grid to the vehicle. So there's not a lot of moving pieces to break. Now, when it comes to encrypted compliance. The EV chargers that we sell and install, they don't even have a card reader on them. There's a near field communication. So the EV driver communicates with the charger and transacts off of near field, tap to pay, cellular, through a cellular connection that is residing on the charge point network. The transaction can also be done on their phone. So there's not a card reader that could be compromised, skimmers put in it, anything like that.
I would add to that, probably the biggest issue is that you want to have the retractable cords so that people don't just drop them on the ground. I mean, I think that's one of the issues that we run into out there, is that if they're having to manually coil them up, they don't always end up being where they need to be. It's an advantage to have the retractable cords. I think you probably agree with that.
I absolutely agree with that. That's where it boils down to the right product for the community. You want a charger that has clean cord technology with a retraction system that keeps the cable off of the ground, preserving the life of the charging cable, but also preventing trip hazards, for sure.
And this one's for Jonathan or Stuart. This was an email that came in. Is there any proposed or pending legislation to be filed this year related to solar devices, solar energy, and regulation of solars in communities? I don't know, Jonathan, I don't know if Nina, I haven't heard from her on anything that's been filed.
Well, and Stuart's also on the TCAA board. Stuart, I'm not aware of anything that has been introduced in session at this time. Session is still ongoing, and more bills will be introduced. But if there are any bills affecting this, then TCAA will be on top of them and negotiating, lobbying with the legislatures to make sure that the associations are protected.
There's not that I know of specifically with Texas, Jason may, but there are two things that did happen on a federal level. The 26% investment tax credit was extended for the next 3 years. It was supposed to drop to 22% and then continue to go down. So that's a tax credit you get on any system you're putting in, whether it's solar or charging. You also, importantly, the dollars that Jason was pointing out is that there are some dollars at the state level that will essentially cover half the cost of putting in a charging station in a community. So you can get on a $5,000 per station. If you put 2 stations in and it's $10,000 for the total, it's $5,000 each. You're going to get $2,500. You can apply to get $2,500 back on it. Plus, you're going to get an investment tax credit. So the system is essentially for free if you apply for those investment for the what they were calling the Volkswagen funds.
I got one more question, then we're going to give away some gift cards. Jason, this is actually just from me, just conversations I've had with some folks. I'll go back to Houston. I've been here a year and a half, and it seems like it floods anytime there's a quarter inch of rain. For the condominium folks, I know single family is a little bit in common areas. You have a little more room as far as installation. But in those garages, first level, second level, you guys putting those in at the bottom? Are they elevated on a concrete pad? Is there a barrier around it? And Stuart, I'm sure you probably have some insight too.
Yes, typically we install them on a concrete base. The unit itself is enclosed. When we think of an EV charger, if you think of a unit that has residual energy residing in it, and that it's active and you could get bit by it, that's not the case. You could literally take one of the charging cables out, unholster it, and drop it in a 5-gallon bucket of water, and all it's going to do is get wet. There's no transference of energy until the vehicle, which is in control of the charging process, is communicating with the charger and requesting energy from the charger. So if there's been pictures floating around of EV chargers submerged in 2-foot water, things like that. But again, you don't have if the conduits that are feeding that are open, then yeah, you've got a live circuit. But at that point, you're not conducting business in that environment anyways. But that said, when we look to install a charger, we're putting them on a concrete base. We're getting them elevated. Obviously, we're going to avoid a low sitting area that could collect water. That's part of the site assessment that we conduct. When we look at an area, when we go to a site and we're doing a site assessment, we're gonna advise the customer on what's best for the station placement. That's just a part of the site assessment that we offer.
A little bit different subject, but kind of in the same. I would recommend that, if to your boards that they call a solar company like ours or someone else just to get a quote on their house so that they can see what the process is like, so that when they're sitting there on the board and something comes, a homeowner sends one in, they know what they're looking at and have an understanding of it, rather than having no experience with it at all. It helps to have been through what it's like to get a bid on your own home, so that you understand what the other, what a neighbor is trying to submit to a board.
All good stuff. We went over a little bit, so we are going to cut it off here. We'll give away some gift cards, and if the presenters can stick around, if anybody has any specific questions they want to ask, feel free to do so. I just want to make sure we stick to as close to 11:30 as we can. Thank you again, everyone. Before we get into the gift cards, this presentation is being recorded, so we'll send that out afterwards with a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. Again, CE credit, so you'll get that certificate as well. Contact information for all our presenters will be available. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on the chapter, upcoming events, things like that. So appreciate everyone's time. Let's get to the real